So my name is Stephen Otero. I'm the Gunnison County Veteran Services Officer. I'm a 12-year U.S. Air Force veteran. I left the service in 2012 and been lucky ever since to be able to work in and around the veteran community. Shortly after getting out of the military, I was able to go and work for one of the federal Wounded Warrior programs, which taught me quite a bit about taking care of people, and specifically taking care of this generation of veterans. My duties as the Gunnison County Services Officer, however, have actually taught me quite a new wealth of knowledge, as the main focus of my duties here in Gunnison County has been to work with a bit older group of veterans. Up until around 6 months ago, my youngest client was 62, my oldest client was 103. So as a 35-year-old male and current, generation veteran, I've really had a unique privilege to learn about another few generations of veterans from Vietnam, the Korean War, as well as World War II. Their life needs are unique in their own way. Those generational needs usually tend to focus on end-of-life health care, expanded medical care due to degenerative diseases, things such as cancer, things just such as dementia or other diseases that affect us, all as we age. In the year 2017, I was able to serve approximately 123 veterans. And of those 123 veterans that I was able to serve, more than 75% of them do qualify as senior citizens. There are a variety of major issues that face today's American veteran of any age. One of the major issues for veterans living in Gunnison County, as well as Hinsdale County and the other surrounding rural counties out here on the western slope, is transportation. Transportation to medical appointments, or quite simply, just the need at all for transportation, for some of these folks who may be living alone, who might be isolated from their families, and definitely creeping up, in age. And so, in order for us to serve this community in a greater capacity, I believe there are a variety of things that we can be doing. One of the number one things that I am attempting to work on currently is networking with a variety of providers in the area and encouraging them to enroll themselves in the VA Choice program. The bulk of veterans that live in rural areas actually tend to lack any other source of health care outside of the Division of Veterans Affairs. This can be a really large challenge, especially when we have folks that have to travel 3 and 4 hours in order to appropriately take advantage of their veterans benefits. The solution is simply to encourage more providers locally to accept the VA Choice program. Veterans, like all Americans, face a risk for suicide. However, currently the veterans' suicide rates are a bit higher than our civilian counterparts. I believe just recently I was looking at some numbers, again published in a RAND study, and it was showing that around 14 normal non-veteran Americans commit suicide per 100,000 Americans. As far as veterans are concerned, that number is actually 30 out of 100,000 veterans who are choosing to commit suicide. So the number is actually just a little more than double when we are looking at veterans as a separate population. In Gunnison Valley, we have one major veteran support group, and that is the American Legion. The commander of the American Legion is a very motivated fellow. His name's Ryan Jordy. He's been working very, very hard to try and attract new members, to try and encourage, additional support at the monthly meetings, as well as to encourage support in veterans attending a coffee social the first Saturday of every month, held at the American Legion building and supported by the Daughters of the American Revolution. This is an attempt by the Legion, the Daughters of the American Revolution, and other motivated community members to encourage a sense of camaraderie, amongst our local veteran population. And I have the privilege, I guess, of going there and usually being the youngest guy in the room, and I learn a lot. I look at that as an opportunity each time to learn a little bit more about how to take better care of my fellow vets, as well as, I learned new opportunities for initiatives that I can create in order to provide an additional layer of support for our community. Our county is very unique. Even though we're, I believe, the 5th largest county in the state of Colorado, we're very, very geographically spread out. And our veteran population seems to be dropping, and it seems to be dropping fairly continuously when observing the rates of veterans as citizens in Gunnison County over the past 4 or 5 years. There's been a consistent drop of around 100 veterans per year for the past 4 or 5 years. I dare hypothesize on too many of the specific factors. However, the general sense that I have is a culmination of factors. Cost of living rising, lack of available care, lack of specialty care available, the geographic separation challenges of being in a very small and isolated mountain community. Unfortunately, it seems as though we live in paradise. However, rates of depression and rates of suicide out in mountain towns and mountain communities in general seem to be ever increasing. This is very alarming to someone in my position, as the bulk of my studies and the bulk of my own growth as a person focus around neurological issues. I study the hormonal changes in the brains of veterans who are introduced to nature-based therapies. That's one particular area of interest that I focus on while being here in Gunnison Valley. There is a general belief out there that being immersed in nature, choosing to live in what many people would consider a paradise, there is the general idea that life is perfect. Unfortunately, that is oftentimes not the case. Due to the lack of providers accepting the VA Choice Program, due to the choices that we make as vets, and we choose to isolate ourselves in these kind of mountain or rural areas, oftentimes these risk factors increase the likelihood of us taking a negative action against ourselves or others around us. So there are two fairly large challenges that I believe we can overcome to serve our veterans here in our valley. One is absolutely a transportation need. The doctors that are able to provide compensation and pension exams for our veterans, unfortunately, do not reside in Gunnison Valley. Now, there is a possibility for some of the doctors within Gunnison Valley to sign up with the Compensation and Pension Division of the Department of Veterans Affairs. However, that process definitely is lengthier than signing up for the VA Choice Program. But if more doctors were able and willing to get on board with the Department of Veterans Affairs and to provide compensation and pension exams, we would absolutely reduce the need for transportation out of the valley and provide a greater level of care for the vets who choose to live here. The second major issue that I've identified it falls right back into working with the Choice Program. We have a lack of mental health providers that are registered with the Choice Program, and due to that, many of the veterans coming from my generation are hesitant to move here because they're involved in counseling. They're involved in doing what they can to make themselves better, doing what they can to improve their lives post-service, and to be able to integrate into society as a nice, hardworking neighbor of all of us. And this is primarily due to mental health care. Another study that I'd recently gone over was coming out of the state of Connecticut, showing that male veterans have PTSD or are being taken care of for PTSD at a rate of 3 to 1 compared to our female counterparts. However, our female counterparts are also unfortunately reporting at a rate of 14 to 1 military sexual trauma. And so oftentimes associated with military sexual trauma is post-traumatic stress, or at least the same symptoms or similar symptoms as post-traumatic stress, and they will manifest in victims of military sexual trauma. Taking care of veterans is a multifaceted challenge. We are simply people, just like everybody else around us. However, we've chosen to sign on the dotted line and serve our nation in a unique way. And once we're done, once we take off the uniform that final time, we just hope to be able to move on with life and to move into community, to integrate and work well with our neighbors. And I believe we in the Gunnison Valley possess a very, very unique opportunity to attract more veterans to live here. The beauty that surrounds us is immense. The people in this community are giving and caring. The support network that we already have developed throughout the Gunnison Valley is robust. The details that I hope to work on with you or with anybody else who is interested, I believe are actually fairly easy to manage. And I think that with a cumulative and holistic approach, we can build a team that will care for veterans for years and years to come.